I need you to look at something with me because what I am about to show you changes the entire calculus of energy security in Europe, the Middle East, and Central Asia. On April 9th of this year, the national Iranian oil company held a press conference in Tehran that received almost no coverage in Western media. At that press conference, Iranian officials announced the discovery of a natural gas field beneath the Caspian Sea that is larger than the entire proven reserves of Norway. Not comparable to Norway, larger than Norway. The field, designated Caspian Block 7, contains an estimated 19 trillion cubic meters of recoverable natural gas. That is enough natural gas to supply the entire European Union for 14 years at current consumption rates. And Iran found it in waters that NATO member Turkey and NATO partner Azerbaijan both claim are within their exploration zones. In the next 22 minutes, I'm going to walk you through exactly what Iran discovered, why the location matters more than the size, and why this discovery is causing emergency meetings in Brussels, Ankara, Baku, and Moscow. This is Energy Realpolitik. Subscribe now if you have not already, because what we are about to cover is being actively analyzed by energy strategists at the International Energy Agency, by military planners at NATO headquarters, and by state energy companies across 3 continents. Let's start with the geology because understanding what Iran found requires understanding where they found it. The Caspian Sea is the largest enclosed inland body of water on Earth. It is technically a lake, not a sea despite its name. It is bordered by 5 countries: Russia to the north and northwest, Kazakhstan to the north and northeast, Turkmenistan to the east, Iran to the south, and Azerbaijan to the west. The Caspian Sea has been a source of geopolitical tension for decades because its legal status is disputed. Is it a sea governed by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea? Or is it a lake governed by bilateral agreements between the littoral states? That question determines who owns the resources beneath its waters. According to the Caspian Sea Regime Convention signed in 2018, the 5 littoral states agreed to divide the seabed into national sectors, with each country receiving sovereign rights over the resources beneath its designated zone. Iran's designated zone is the smallest of the 5, covering only approximately 11% of the Caspian's total area. Russia controls the largest share. Kazakhstan controls the second largest. Azerbaijan and Turkmenistan control significant portions. Iran controls the southern strip. The Caspian Block 7 field that Iran just discovered is located in waters that Iran claims are within its southern sector. However, according to maritime boundary maps published by the Azerbaijan State Oil Company and reviewed by international maritime law experts, the coordinates of the discovery overlap with waters that Azerbaijan claims under a different interpretation of the 2018 convention. That dispute is not trivial. If the field is in Iranian waters, Iran owns 19 trillion cubic meters of natural gas. If the field is in Azerbaijani waters, Azerbaijan owns it. And if the field straddles the boundary, the 2 countries will need to negotiate a resource-sharing agreement. Given the current state of Iran-Azerbaijan relations, that negotiation is unlikely to go smoothly. Subscribe if you are watching this and realizing you are not getting this level of analysis anywhere else. Now let's talk about why NATO is terrified of this discovery. Announcement number 1. This discovery makes Iran energy independent and gives Iran the ability to undercut Russian gas exports to Europe. And this one matters more than anything else because it fundamentally alters the leverage dynamics that have defined European energy policy for 2 decades. Europe currently imports approximately 40% of its natural gas from Russia via pipeline. Since the war in Ukraine began in 2022, European leaders have been desperately searching for alternative gas suppliers to reduce dependence on Russian energy. Europe has increased imports of liquefied natural gas from Qatar, the United States, and Australia. Europe has accelerated renewable energy projects. But the reality is that Europe cannot replace Russian pipeline gas entirely without significant price increases and supply disruptions. Iran's Caspian discovery changes that equation. If Iran develops the Caspian Block 7 field and constructs pipeline infrastructure to export that gas, Iran could supply a significant portion of Europe's natural gas demand at prices lower than Russian exports. Why? Because Iran's production costs are lower, Iranian labor is cheaper, Iranian domestic energy prices are subsidized. And critically, Iran has been under Western sanctions for decades, which means Iranian energy infrastructure is underutilized. Iran has the capacity to ramp up production quickly if the political will exists. According to analysis by energy economists at Wood Mackenzie and confirmed by statements from the Iranian Petroleum Ministry, Iran could bring the Caspian Block 7 field into production within 4 to 6 years if international sanctions are lifted and foreign investment is allowed. That timeline is faster than most new LNG export projects. And the gas could be delivered to European markets via pipeline through Turkey or via undersea pipeline through the Black Sea. Think carefully about what this represents. If Europe can replace Russian gas with Iranian gas, Russia loses its primary source of leverage over European foreign policy. Russia loses billions of dollars in annual revenue, and Europe gains energy security without needing to rely on expensive LNG imports from distant suppliers. That is a strategic nightmare for Moscow. But it is also a strategic nightmare for Washington because the only way Europe can access Iranian gas is if the United States lifts sanctions on Iran's energy sector. And lifting those sanctions would require a comprehensive nuclear agreement that the United States has been unwilling to negotiate for years. So the discovery creates a dilemma. Does the United States maintain its hardline sanctions policy against Iran, knowing that doing so keeps Europe dependent on Russian energy? Or does the United States negotiate with Iran to unlock this gas supply, knowing that doing so strengthens Iran economically and weakens American leverage in the Middle East? Received. That is announcement number one. Announcement number two, Turkey has demanded joint development rights and is threatening to block any pipeline route that does not include Turkish equity participation. This is the part that reveals how quickly this discovery could spiral into a regional crisis. Turkey is a NATO member. Turkey controls the Bosporus Strait, through which any undersea pipeline from the Caspian to Europe would need to pass. Turkey has historically positioned itself as an energy transit hub, profiting from pipeline fees while exerting political influence over the flow of energy resources. Turkey is not going to allow Iran to export Caspian gas to Europe without extracting concessions. According to reporting by Bloomberg, and confirmed by statements from Turkish Energy Minister Alparslan Bayraktar, Turkey has formally requested that any development of the Caspian Block 7 field include Turkish energy companies as joint venture partners. Turkey is offering to finance pipeline construction through Turkish territory in exchange for a 25% equity stake in the field itself. Turkey is also demanding that gas transit fees through Turkish pipelines be set at rates that ensure Turkish profitability, even if gas prices decline. Iran has not yet responded publicly to Turkey's demands, but diplomatic sources speaking to Reuters suggest that Iran views the Turkish position as extortion. Iran does not want to share ownership of a field that is located in Iranian territorial waters. Iran does not want to give Turkey veto power over Iranian energy exports. But Iran also recognizes that without Turkish cooperation, exporting Caspian gas to Europe is logistically impossible. This is a classic geopolitical standoff. Iran has the resource. Turkey controls the route. Neither side can achieve its objectives without the other. And neither side trusts the other enough to negotiate in good faith. Stay with me because this is where the narrative completely changes and where the Russian and Azerbaijani reactions become impossible to ignore. Announcement number 3. Russia and Azerbaijan are both claiming that the discovery violates the 2018 Caspian Sea Convention and are demanding international arbitration. And this one, almost nobody in the mainstream media is connecting correctly. This is not just a legal dispute. This is a coordinated attempt by Russia and Azerbaijan to delay or prevent Iranian development of the field. Russia and Azerbaijan released a joint statement on April 14th, 5 days after Iran's announcement, stating that the coordinates of the Caspian Block 7 field fall within a disputed zone that has not been fully demarcated under the 2018 convention. The statement calls for an independent survey by the Caspian Sea Littoral States Commission to determine the precise boundaries before any drilling or development occurs. That survey process could take 3 to 5 years. Why are Russia and Azerbaijan coordinating their response? Because both countries have strategic interest in preventing Iran from becoming a major natural gas exporter. Russia's interest is obvious. If Iran exports gas to Europe, Russia loses market share. Russia loses revenue. Russia loses leverage. Russia cannot allow that to happen. So Russia is using legal mechanisms to delay Iranian development for as long as possible, buying time to lock European customers into long-term contracts with Russian suppliers. Azerbaijan's interest is more complex. Azerbaijan is a major natural gas exporter. Azerbaijani gas is exported to Europe via the Southern Gas Corridor, a pipeline network that runs through Georgia and Turkey. Azerbaijani gas is positioned as the democratic alternative to Russian gas, since Azerbaijan is not under Western sanctions and is considered a friendly energy supplier. If Iran enters the European gas market, Azerbaijani exports become less valuable. Europe will have more suppliers to choose from, prices will decline. Azerbaijan's strategic importance will diminish. So Azerbaijan is working with Russia, despite their historical rivalry, to prevent Iran from exploiting the Caspian discovery. That is a stunning alignment of interest between two countries that have been adversaries for decades. Received. That is announcement number 3. Now let's talk about what is really happening behind the headlines, because there are two stories playing out simultaneously, and the mainstream media is only covering one of them. The first story is the energy story. Iran found a lot of gas. Various countries want access to it or want to block others from accessing it. That is the surface-level analysis, and it is not wrong. But it is incomplete. The second story is the fundamental reshaping of the Eurasian energy architecture. For 30 years, the United States has pursued a strategy of energy containment against Iran and Russia. The goal was to prevent both countries from dominating global energy markets. The United States supported sanctions against Iran to keep Iranian oil and gas off the market. The United States supported pipeline projects that bypassed Russia to reduce European dependence on Russian energy. That strategy worked reasonably well for 3 decades. But the Caspian discovery breaks that strategy. If Iran develops this field, Iran becomes one of the top 5 natural gas exporters in the world. If Iran exports to Europe, the entire sanctions regime collapses because Europe will demand access to Iranian gas. If the sanctions regime collapses, Iran's economy rebounds. Iranian influence in the Middle East increases. And American leverage over both Iran and Europe decreases. At the same time, if Russia successfully blocks Iranian development through legal delays and diplomatic pressure, Europe remains dependent on Russian gas. That means European foreign policy remains constrained by energy dependence, European support for Ukraine becomes harder to sustain, and American efforts to isolate Russia fail. Think carefully about what this represents. The discovery of one natural gas field in the Caspian Sea has created a situation where the United States cannot win. If Iran develops the field, American sanctions policy fails. If Russia blocks Iranian development, American efforts to reduce European dependence on Russian energy fail. The United States is trapped between two bad options and there is no clear path forward. If you operate in the energy sector, this is not a discovery story. This is a market structure story. If you follow European politics, this is not an environmental story. This is an energy security story. If you track defense policy, this is not a resource story. This is a strategic vulnerability story. This pattern has repeated throughout history, and every time it repeats, the outcome is the same. The Napoleonic Wars, 1803 to 1815, France and Britain fought for over a decade. Both empires were exhausted. Their economies were devastated. Their populations were tired of war. And who benefited? The United States. The United States, which remained neutral for most of the conflict, was able to expand its territory, increase its trade, and emerge as a rising power while the European powers destroyed each other. The parallel is exact. The United States spent 2 decades trying to contain Iran and Russia through sanctions, military interventions, and diplomatic isolation. Those efforts consumed American resources, political capital, and strategic focus. And who is benefiting now? China. China, which did not fight those battles, is now the dominant economic power in Eurasia, brokering peace agreements, financing infrastructure projects, and positioning itself as the indispensable mediator in regional disputes. Iran's Caspian discovery is not just an energy story. It is the next chapter in the story of American decline and Chinese ascendance in Eurasia. So where does this leave us? Let me give you 3 clear paths because there is no honest middle ground here. Path 1, the United States negotiates a new nuclear agreement with Iran that includes lifting energy sector sanctions in exchange for Iranian commitments on nuclear enrichment. Iran develops the Caspian field with European investment. Europe reduces dependence on Russian gas. Russia loses influence. Iran becomes a major energy exporter. American influence in the Middle East declines. Likelihood assessment 30%. This is the path that European leaders want, but American hardliners will resist. Path 2, Russia and Azerbaijan successfully delay Iranian development through legal challenges and diplomatic pressure. The Caspian field remains undeveloped for years. Europe remains dependent on Russian gas. American efforts to isolate Russia fail. Iran remains economically weakened. The status quo persists. Likelihood assessment 40%. This is the path that Russia is actively working to achieve and has the legal and diplomatic tools to make happen. Path 3, Turkey negotiates a joint development agreement with Iran that gives Turkish companies equity in the field and control over export routes. Turkey emerges as the dominant energy transit hub for Eurasian gas. Turkey uses that position to extract political concessions from both Europe and Iran. American influence over Turkish foreign policy collapses entirely. Likelihood assessment 30%. This is the path that Turkey is positioning itself for and has the geographic leverage to achieve. I think we are closer to path 2 than most analysts realize. Russia has every incentive to delay Iranian development. Russia has the legal mechanisms to do so. And Russia has shown repeatedly that it is willing to use energy as a geopolitical weapon. The question is whether Iran can outmaneuver Russian legal challenges and secure European investment despite the delays. But the wildcard here is China. China needs natural gas to fuel its economic growth. China has been increasing imports of LNG from Qatar and Australia, but those supplies are expensive. If China offers to finance Iranian development of the Caspian field in exchange for long-term supply contracts at below-market rates, Iran could bypass European markets entirely and export to Asia instead. That would undermine both Russian and Azerbaijani strategies while giving China access to affordable energy. Here are the questions I want you to take away. First, will the United States lift sanctions on Iran to unlock European access to Caspian gas, or will it maintain its hardline policy and keep Europe dependent on Russia? Second, can Iran develop this field without Turkish cooperation, or does Turkey have veto power over Iranian energy exports? Third, will China step in as the primary financier and customer for Iranian gas, and what does that mean for the balance of power in Eurasia? Tell me in the comments what you think happens next. Tell me if you think Iran successfully develops this field or if Russia and Azerbaijan block it. We will keep tracking every development in Tehran, Moscow, Baku, Ankara, Brussels, and Beijing. That is what Energy Realpolitik does every single day. Subscribe now. Share this analysis with everyone in your network who needs to understand why one natural gas discovery in the Caspian Sea could reshape the geopolitics of energy for the next 2 decades. Turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update, and we will see you in the next analysis.